Hi, welcome to KartTV. I'm Nils Schneider, and today I'm going to show you all the basics of ramen, from the broth to the noodles and to basic garnishes. Alright, so firstly what we want to do is we're going to start by making our alkaline noodles. Now, alkaline noodles, they just have a higher pH than the water. The noodle itself isn't going to break down and kind of turn into a mushy paste. So what I've gone ahead and done is I've baked some baking soda at 250 degrees. I've baked it for about an hour, and then I'm just adding it into my warm water. We just want to give it a good stir. You know, you can use a whisk or whatever you have at home. Then what we're going to do is we're going to grab our flour here, and we're going to mix it with our alkaline solution. And you can really see the second I put that solution in, it almost goes into that really classic ramen yellow. Now with this dough, it's really going to kind of trick you with your eye. It's going to turn into very flaky, almost like a pie dough texture. But that's what we want. So we really want to just make sure we're incorporating all the water and the flour in here. And then what you're going to do is just kind of squeeze it with your hands, okay? So once we have it into a ball, we're just going to wrap this and we're going to let it rest at room temperature for about a half an hour. All right, so now that we have our ramen noodle dough resting, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to do the broth. Now, today I have chicken wings and drums. The reason being is they're nice and fatty, there's lots of bone, and that's what we want for our stock. I've also got bonito here, which is a shaved skipjack tuna, and then some onion, some scallion, and then I've got an array of separate kind of mushrooms. I've also got some kelp. This is a dashi kelp, and some ginger with the skin on. So firstly, what I want to do is I want to grab a pot, and we're going to just start heating up with some oil. And we're going to throw our chicken right in. Now, if you don't have a large pot or space, you can always throw this in the oven and roast it. That also gives a really great flavor. You can roast it at about 400 degrees till it's nice and caramelized. I'm just doing it right into the pot today just to show you kind of how easy it is to do it all in one go. So we'll throw our chicken in. We're just going to process some mushrooms here. Now these are shiitake. Again, if you don't have these, they don't need to be perfect. We'll just cut them into halves, but if you don't have these, you can always use the creminis or shimeji, whatever you have. But it is crucial to get some mushrooms into the stock. Now what we're going to do with the skin on is we're just going to grab our garlic cloves and we're just going to break them up just so that they can release all those oils into the stock. And then lastly, we're going to just grab one bunch of scallion here. You don't need to worry about the ends. They actually make for really good soup base. We're just going to cut them probably about an inch, inch and a half long, all the way down. We don't want to waste any of it, okay? Just use one bunch here. And again, it doesn't need to be perfect, it's going right into a stock. We've kept the remaining fat from the chicken wings and the chicken bones. We're going to go right in with our onions firstly. Got our fat still in the pan, nice and high, and our onions in. And we just want to saute these until they start to caramelize just slightly. And then we're going to go in with the rest of our garlic and our mushrooms and the scallion as well. All right, so we have our onions where we want them. They're starting to caramelize. They're looking really nice and golden brown. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to go in with the mushrooms. We can add our shimeji as well. And our garlic, scallion, and our ginger. All right, so we have all of our ingredients in the pot except for two crucial ones that you see here. So I've got my bonito, which are my smoked skipjack flakes, and my kelp. And the reason why we don't add them right away is this is very salty, very intense. So this only really steeps for maybe about a half hour to an hour, okay? So we're gonna go back to our stock here, and we're gonna add our chicken in. It's very important that we scrape all this fat back in. Contradictive to a French stock is we actually want a lot of fat in here. So now that everything's in the pot, we're gonna fill it with cold water. It's very important that the water is cold. And we're just gonna bring that right down to a low, okay? And we wanna fill it up with just enough water that it covers all of the stuff over top. All right, so we've got our ramen stock working. That's gonna sit overnight, you know, on a very, very low temperature. We're gonna roll it for about 8 to 12 hours. We've rested our dough, got some flour for dusting, got a noodle knife with me. So similar to our last video where we went over pasta dough, we just kind of want to work it with our hands here and shape it into a rectangle. I've got a pasta roller set up here. If you don't have one of these at home, don't worry, you can still roll it with a wine bottle or a rolling pin. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna fold it into our rectangle again. This dough is a little bit more spongy, a little bit harder to work with, a little bit more elastic. Now, the nice thing about it being elastic is it'll go through the machine really, really easily. Dust it with flour again. So I'm almost gonna put it in a little bit thicker just to see where we're at. So we're gonna go in quite thick here. You kind of just wanna work the edge, make sure it all goes through nice and even. This one went through not too bad. We'll actually just go through one more time here. Now with ramen noodles, we want to make sure that we're doing a thicker noodle, a lot thicker than our Italian pasta. So what we'll do is we'll only go down a few more grades here. So I'd say that's a good length for the ramen noodle itself. What we can do is just cut it right on that fold. Clean off the ends if you want, just to make it a little bit more organized. Then we're just gonna fold like that. Now sometimes your cutting board's a little warped, just like mine here. So I'm just gonna actually cut this right onto the countertop. And again, kind of the stance I showed you in that other video, we want to have a nice angle right over top. And we'll just kind of cut away here. Again, you don't need a pasta knife, you can use just any old pastry knife you have at home, it's just fine. Dust this nicely, making sure we're separating all the noodles. Now I like my ramen noodles quite thick. You can go thinner than this. You can put it through one of the attachments on here. All right, so now that we've separated our noodles, we've generously tossed them in flour. So if we want to keep these overnight, what I like to do is just really generously toss them in flour. Give them a really nice toss. And then what we'll do, we'll just portion them into nice little balls. Keep them on a plate, and then we can just wrap them in saran wrap or cling film. Now, if you want to keep these for multiple days, I wouldn't recommend keeping them for longer than 2 to 3 days. But today we're just going to keep them in the fridge, and we're going to show you the completed dish tomorrow when the stock is ready, and we'll go from there.